The illusion of progress when seats at the table don't equal power to change the menu. Good morning, everyone. I'm truly honored to stand before you today. Recently, I had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Robyn Anderson, a revolutionary force in the fight for equity in leadership. Robyn isn't just an advocate, she's a visionary who has dedicated her life's work to illuminating the often invisible realities that Black women face in corporate America. Her courage to speak truth to power has transformed organizations, shifted mindsets, and created pathways where none existed before. What makes Robyn's work so profound is her ability to combine razor sharp data analysis with the lived experiences of those navigating these complex systems. Today, I'm sharing her insights with you, bringing perhaps a bit more boldness than her admittedly shy demeanor might allow, but maintaining her raw authenticity that makes her message so powerful. Let me start with a question that might seem simple on the surface. How many of you have heard the exciting news that women now lead 11% of Fortune 500 companies? A historic high, right? Something to celebrate. Now, let me ask you this. How many of those women CEOs are Black? Two, just two Black women CEOs in the entire Fortune 500. That's not a typo. That's not an error. That's our reality in 2025. Let that sink in for a moment. Two out of 500. That's 0.4%, less than half of 1%. When Robyn shared this statistic with me, I felt a physical reaction, a tightness in my chest, a heaviness that lingered. Not because I expected perfect representation, but because it reveals something profound about how we've been conditioned to think about progress. We've been trained to celebrate incremental gains without examining who's actually included in those gains. We applaud diversity broadly while overlooking specific exclusions that persist with stunning consistency. This is what I want to talk about today: the dangerous illusion of progress that masks continued inequity, and why representation without power isn't enough. It's merely a modern form of tokenism dressed in corporate language. The story we tell ourselves about diversity in leadership is comforting but dangerously incomplete. We point to overall numbers improving while ignoring the stark disparities within those improvements. It's like celebrating that a rising tide is lifting all boats while ignoring that some boats remain firmly anchored to the ocean floor with holes deliberately drilled into their hulls. During our conversation, Robyn emphasized three critical insights that challenge our conventional thinking about progress, insights that should make us profoundly uncomfortable with the status quo. First, progress for women in leadership does not automatically mean progress for Black women specifically. The data is clear and devastating. Despite record numbers of female CEOs, only a tiny fraction are Black. This reveals that the barriers facing Black women are distinct and require specific attention. They aren't simply solved by general diversity initiatives that fail to address the unique intersection of race and gender. Second, representation matters not just as a statistic, but as an engine for change. When decisions are made about us without us, it leads to policies and cultures that don't address our unique needs and aspirations. This isn't just about fairness, it's about effectiveness. Organizations miss crucial perspectives when their leadership doesn't reflect the full spectrum of talent available. They make products that don't work for everyone, create marketing that alienates potential customers, and build workplace cultures that hemorrhage talent. Third, and perhaps most importantly, resilience alone isn't enough. Systemic change is required. This insight particularly resonated with me because it speaks directly to the soft girl era philosophy that many Black women are embracing today. For too long, the narrative has been that if Black women just work harder, just persevere more, just demonstrate greater excellence, the doors will eventually open. But Robyn's research shows that even as more Black women launch businesses, making up 14% of all woman owned businesses, they still face disproportionate economic setbacks and job losses compared to other groups. The message is clear and must be heard. Individual effort, no matter how extraordinary, cannot overcome systemic barriers alone. Excellence is not enough when the game itself is rigged. Let me share with you some of the powerful stories Robyn highlighted in our interview, stories that illuminate both the challenges and the possibilities. Consider Thasunda Brown Duckett, who became CEO of TIAA in 2021, making her one of only two Black female CEOs on the Fortune 500 list in 2025. Her journey wasn't simply about personal achievement, though her achievements are certainly remarkable. Duckett faced barriers typical for many Black professionals: lack of representation at senior levels and limited mentorship opportunities within finance. What makes her story instructive is how she responded. She didn't just break through the ceiling, she worked to redesign the building. Duckett championed internal talent development programs, focused on mentoring diverse employees, and advocated publicly for DEI initiatives within financial services. Under her leadership, TIAA improved employee retention rates among minority staff and increased supplier diversity. Her visibility has inspired countless young professionals while pushing other firms to examine their own pipelines. This illustrates a crucial point. Representation at the highest levels creates ripple effects throughout organizations and industries. One voice at the table can change what's on the menu for generations to come. Then there's Tony Towns Whitley, who was promoted from within SAIC's executive ranks to become CEO, the second current Black woman leading a Fortune 500 company. Towns Whitley encountered skepticism about her ability to drive innovation due solely to assumptions about race and gender. Her response: she instituted transparent performance metrics tied directly to inclusive hiring practices across all business units. The results speak volumes. SAIC saw measurable increases in diverse hires across technical roles, and employee engagement scores climbed significantly. Towns Whitley drove double digit revenue growth during her first year as CEO and received industry awards for advancing workplace equity standards. Her approach set new benchmarks among government contractors regarding diversity accountability. What's particularly noteworthy about both these cases is that these leaders didn't just achieve personal success, they leveraged their positions to create systemic change. They understood that their presence alone, while significant, wasn't sufficient to transform their organizations. They used their power to change the rules, not just win at a game designed for them to lose. But leadership isn't just about the C suite. Robyn also highlighted a powerful trend: the growth in Black women owned businesses amid adversity. Black women now own approximately 14% of all woman owned businesses nationwide, one of the fastest growing segments despite economic headwinds. These entrepreneurs have faced disproportionate impacts from job loss, over 106,000 jobs lost by April 2025, limited access to capital, and shifting DEI climates impacting support networks. Yet many turned adversity into opportunity by launching consulting firms, online boutiques, wellness brands, and leveraged social media platforms creatively when traditional avenues closed off. These businesses have provided community employment opportunities, even as larger corporations downsize staff. The surge began during COVID era layoffs, but accelerated with recent rollbacks affecting corporate DEI programs. There's been a significant uptick in business registrations led by younger founders who cite community impact alongside profit motives. This movement has shifted perceptions around entrepreneurship's accessibility and forced banks and investors toward more inclusive lending practices. It demonstrates that when traditional paths to leadership remain blocked, Black women create their own paths and bring others along with them. They don't just join tables, they build their own and they make them round so everyone has equal voice. What these stories reveal is that we need to fundamentally reframe how we think about progress. It's not enough to celebrate statistical improvements without examining who benefits from those improvements. It's not enough to applaud individual success stories without addressing the systems that make those stories exceptional rather than routine. And perhaps most importantly, it's not enough to expect Black women to simply work harder within systems that weren't designed for their success. As Robyn so eloquently put it during our interview, when decisions are made about us, without us, it leads to policies and cultures that don't address our unique needs and aspirations. This brings me to a critical point that aligns perfectly with the soft girl era philosophy. For too long, Black women have been expected to be super women, to overcome every obstacle through sheer force of will, to carry their communities on their backs while smiling through the strain. The message has been be twice as good to get half as far. But what if the problem isn't that Black women aren't trying hard enough? What if the problem is that the systems themselves need to change? This isn't about lowering standards. It's about recognizing that excellence exists in many forms and that our current systems often fail to recognize or reward the excellence of Black women. It's about acknowledging that resilience is admirable, but shouldn't be required at superhuman levels just to achieve what others achieve with far less effort. In the soft girl era, we're learning that softness isn't weakness. It's a radical act of self preservation in a world that expects Black women to be endlessly strong. We're learning that saying no to unreasonable expectations isn't failure, it's boundary setting. We're learning that rest isn't laziness, it's necessary for sustainability. And most importantly, we're learning that the responsibility for change doesn't rest solely on the shoulders of those most affected by inequality. It rests with all of us who benefit from or participate in current systems. So, where do we go from here? How do we move beyond the illusion of progress to create genuine equity? I challenge each of you today to become architects of systemic change, not just spectators of incremental progress. Examine your own organizations and ask who is truly represented in our leadership? Who has actual decision making power? Whose voices are heard and whose are silenced? Then take action. If you're in a position of power, use it. Mentor someone who doesn't look like you. Change hiring practices. Examine promotion criteria. Allocate resources differently. Create accountability metrics that matter. If you're not in a position of power yet, build coalitions, document disparities, speak up when you can, support others when they speak up. And remember that your presence matters, not just as a statistic, but as a change agent. The journey toward true equity isn't comfortable. It requires us to confront uncomfortable truths about systems we may have benefited from. It demands that we distinguish between the appearance of progress and actual transformation. It asks us to reimagine what leadership looks like and who gets to define success. But the alternative, continuing to celebrate illusions while real people face real barriers, is not acceptable. Not in 2025. Not ever. I'll leave you with this. Representation without power isn't progress, it's performance. And we've had enough performance. It's time for real change. It's time to move beyond seats at the table to having the power to change what's on the menu. The question is not whether you'll be a part of this change, but how. And that choice begins today. Thank you.